is not after your car. The enemy is not after your house. The enemy is not after your relationship. The enemy is not after your marriage. I want to submit to you that the enemy is not after any of that, but the enemy instead is after your mind. He's after your head. As a matter of fact, much of what we ascribe to the enemy is really not the enemy at all. I want to submit to you that the enemy is not nearly as busy as many of us suggest that he is. We submit stuff in the church, we bandy things around like the enemy's after this, or pray for me, pastor, the enemy's after this, or the enemy's after that. No, the enemy is not nearly as busy as we think he is. Number one, because the enemy was defeated on the cross. But number two, for our purpose of teaching today, the enemy's not nearly as busy as we think that he is, because the enemy is not after your home, he's not after your car. The enemy is after your mind, because the enemy knows that if he can get your head, if he can get your mind, then you will mess up everything else. And I want you to understand that it has everything to do with your head. Some of you have come from near and far, and the burning question on your heart is, God, why haven't you opened this door? Why haven't you opened the door of this next place in my career? Why haven't you opened the door of this relationship? Why haven't you opened this door where I perceive that you are leading me? And God brought me here to tell you it's because the battle is in your head. You have got to step through the door head first. If you step into that new opportunity, if you step into that new relationship, if you step into that boardroom without a new mind, you will take bricks from your past into your future and ultimately build the same house. I've come to tell somebody up in here that the battle is in your head. This is why 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 3 says, For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that's your head that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought, there it is again, into the obedience of Christ. It's because the battle is in your head. I still don't think you're with me. This is why, of all of the places that God could have ordained that Jesus Christ, the Kurios Christos, the Weos to Theou, out of all of the places that God could have ordained that Jesus be crucified, we know that the Lamb of God was slain before the foundations of the world. But God, in his wise providence, out of all of the places where he could have ordained that Jesus be crucified, he ordained that Jesus be crucified on a hill called Calvary, which in Aramaic is Golgotha. Now, both the word Calvary and Aramaic means the place of the skull. You didn't get it. God, in his wise providence, ordained that Jesus be crucified in a place that points to your head. The battle is in your head. Your neighbor's still not with me. This is why before they pierced him in his hands, and before they nailed him in his feet, before they even drove a spear through his side, the first thing they did was that they put a crown of thorns on his head. Why? Because the breaking and the breakthrough has to happen first in your mind. And when he died, nobody took his life. He laid his life down for you and I. But when he laid his life down and gave up the ghost, the Bible declares that the veil in the temple was torn, but the veil was not torn from the bottom to the top. The veil was torn from the top to the bottom. Why? Because before you can walk it out, the access, the breaking, and the healing has got to start in your mind. When a baby is born, a baby comes out head first. It's considered unnatural. It's considered a breach if the baby tries to come out feet first. God brought me here to tell you that before your feet can hit the ground, the new thing that God wants to do in your life's got to start in your I want to submit this to you.